afternoon. Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. It's a beautiful day in the low country. If you could see through the clouds and see the sun that's right up there behind it somewhere. Going to peek through here this afternoon. Stuff's just been rolling through. I'm sure it has been where you are too. It's that time of year when weather gets kind of balled up. And got Jonathan here with us today. And Jonathan, you're going to be talking about what?
The parables.
The parables.
Yes. Rebecca is...
That's your teaching. What?
All right, you can hear me now. All right,
okay.
I'm talking on the parables. So Rebecca was flying in. She asked me to come in here and talk about the parables today. So I'm like, sure, I'm game for that. I got tomorrow night's my last night, so I'm laying the groundwork for you to go into the miracles. Yeah. So
you've had 3 so far.
3 so far, and so they're usually broken up into 5 different themes. And I was preparing to speak tomorrow night on parables of Christian living, and I said, you know what? We're in the middle of Lent. I want to go judgment.
Whoa!
So,
boom!
Yeah, there's parables on judgment. Well, they're all judging, but so this is the one on forgiveness, about them asking Jesus, how many times do I forgive? Mm-hmm. That actually it's found in one of the Jewish writings about. If someone asks you to forgive them, you forgive them. If they do it again, you forgive them again. If they do it the 3rd time, you forgive them again. And if they do it the 4th time, you do not forgive. So they asked Jesus, how many times do we forgive? And, up to 7 times, like, let's do double of that and add 1. And he says, no, let's go even further than that, 7 times 70.
People struggle with that.
Sure they do.
They struggle with that. I don't think most people even get to the 3rd forgive before they say, man, I'm scratching you off my list and I'm going to hold on to this thing.
It depends upon how much you've been violated. If someone says you had a bad hair day, you can get over that. But if someone has stolen your dignity or assassinated your character or something you've worked real hard on, that's real hard, because they've robbed you of something. Which is one of the things I think that's amazing about, I'll mention this tomorrow night, maybe those who won't make it, but it just dawned on me a few years ago that when we used to say the Lord's Prayer, the old one used to be, forgive us our sins or forgive us our debts, as those who debted against us, or our debtors. It's actually an economic term. It's actually a mathematical term that's used there in the sense that they would have known back then that maybe we miss now. We use trespasses. Which is...
Aren't there some denominations that still use that the older version?
Mm-hmm. But trespass, I mean, it's fine. It means that. But you hear someone trespassing on your property, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Like, just get off my property, nothing's lost. While debt is something, and this is the point Jesus was trying to get at, when someone has sinned against you, they have taken something from you. It may be physical, it may be money, but more than not, it's probably something they've done to you emotionally. So if they've said something about you to the world or said something to you that assassinated your character, they have robbed you of something. They have taken something from you. And when someone's taken something, and this is just human nature, when someone has taken something from you, the only way they can pay you back, this is just human nature, this is the sinful part of it, is you will feel better when you see them in pain.
Whoa.
Because it pays down the debt. You think, when you see, and you that's the wickedness of part of it. You cheer on them, seeing them, want to see them fail, want to see, if they keep doing that, they're going to fall flat on their faces, and I cannot wait to see it happen.
What do you think the impact of social media has had on this whole idea of forgiveness, where you can just judge somebody, you perceive there's a wrong, and then you can send it out to the world?
Yeah.
Something negative about that person.
Yeah, I often think, well, once you send it out, it's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't take it back.
Can't ever get it back.
You can't take it back. But that's the whole point of Jesus saying, we forgive, we ask God to forgive us of our debts, just as we've forgiven those other people, just as God has forgiven us. So the idea is that if you think about how much debt we have taken on our own lives that we do not even know about, all the little besetting sins. In the end, God forgave us all this debt. And that's the thing about that I'll get to tomorrow night, is that, you remember the unmerciful servant who comes to the king and says, will you forgive me this?
Yeah.
It was something like 10,000 talents.
Yeah.
That,
Impossible.
That mathematical, it's like something like $3.5 billion. And the average wage back at that time was something like $13,000 or $14,000 a year, comparable. So it would have been 200,000 years of work to pay it off. Mm-hmm. And then he doesn't forgive. He's forgiven of that debt, and then another servant of his comes to him and owes him something like, I think it's like 4 months of wages, and he hasn't thrown in jail. And Jesus says, this is what you look like when you don't forgive people. Because God has forgiven you all this debt, and yet you hold it against other people that have sinned against you. So he says, and he's pretty forceful with that. Just as you judge other people, you will be judged.
I was watching a sports program yesterday in the afternoon, and Charles Barkley was talking about the difference in the way basketball players act today than they did when he was playing. Must have been 15, 20 years, maybe 20 years ago or more. And he said, now you walk in the locker room at the halftime, and the players are on social media.
Yes.
Looking to see what people are commenting about their play in the first half.
Yeah.
And he said what happens at times is a former player comments to somebody else, but it gets picked up in this world of social media out there, and the player reacts right then.
Yeah. Yes.
Writes down something and sends it out. So.
Super sensitive to that. Yeah.
And he said when he was playing, people would always say things about you, but you didn't have a way to get back at anything like that instantaneously. And by the time you thought about it again, it was already over with.
Yeah.
Because everybody was hashing with what do they call it when they're on the court and they're chattering at each other.
Talking trash.
Talking
trash. Yeah.
So everybody does that, but you don't take it seriously.
It's just basketball.
Yeah. That's just part of it. You don't take it seriously, and then by the time a day's gone, you hadn't even thought about it again. Life's moved on. But right then, you go in the locker room at halftime and you nail somebody for it.
Yeah. Well,
it's just crazy.
Very sensitive. I think I was talking about this with James Hamilton and Rebecca about the show that was on, I think it was Amazon I watched. It was on Deion Sanders being the coach. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And he's really old school. So he just holds kids to super accountability. He doesn't let them get away with anything. And it's very different in the world we live in now, where a lot of people feel entitled, no criticism ever. I don't even call them helicopter parents now. I think the better term I heard was snowplow parents. Snowplows, if you watch the snowplow, it just knocks everything out of the way that can get in the way of anybody and anything. But the amazing thing is parents of these kids are drawn to that kind of coaching. They want their children to be under that. So,
mm-hmm. How do you think he's going to do at Colorado out there?
I think he's going to be successful. He's gotten better recruits than they've gotten in 20 years since Bill McCartney was there. So that
whole thing about the transfer portal, that's what I'm trying to think about.
Yes.
That's just opened it up for people coaches like him that have this magnetic personality and all that. People want to go play for him. Now they can, from wherever they are.
But they better be ready for brutal. They better be ready for brutal truth. I mean, he doesn't sugarcoat it, and he tells it like it is. And I mean, personally, I think a lot of people want that. They just don't. They just got to get used to it and be ready for it. So, because life's difficult.
I think they want it at some level, but they don't want to go through the portal to get to that level. They don't want to go through the first part of it to get to the last part of it.
Well, getting back to the forgiveness thing, though, it's one thing to talk about it, forgiveness. It's another thing. What does C.S. Lewis say? Everybody thinks forgiveness is a lovely idea until they have something to forgive.
Is there anything C.S. Lewis didn't comment on?
Sure, he can comment on the NBA.
He would have, though.
But
he really, in his time, he had great insights into the culture and all that.
Sure.
At the time. And
Yeah, he did, and he saw ahead 70, 80 years in the future, which is why I think his stuff is so timeless, because I think he just knows human nature. I mean, which is why the parables, I think, are so special, because they really they never get old, because it taps into, the parable of the prodigal. Everybody understands that, because we've all either been one of the other brothers.
That's right.
And there's just so many parables like that. Or last week when I talked about the unjust steward, or the parable of the scoundrel, people understand about what we really want to last going into the future, more than money or house. We want to see people we love be with us forever. That speaks to the heart. Sorry. And when you get to the heart, that's limitless. And Jesus, these parables hit over and over and over again, touching the heart. And that's what parable means. It's a combination of two Greek words, para, which means beside, next to, right against, and parabole, which means to cast or to throw. So it's to cast to the side or next to a real life feeling we have, along with an illustration to use it. So I can come up and say, you need to forgive somebody. And you're like, okay, yeah, I know that, but how do I do that? But then you put a story to it. There were two servants, or there was a man, and you give a story with it. That puts meaning behind it. And it's a way I think Jesus did to enter through a biblical truth, an eternal truth, but enter it through the back door. So when you walk away and all of a sudden you go, I think he was talking about me. But you had to think about it.
Yeah. I read somewhere a long time ago, I don't remember it exactly now, but it said that the parables were like that when Jesus used parables, it was like he was making a string of pearls. Mm-hmm. And one pearl would be the story, and the next pearl would be the life incident, then another pearl, then another life incident, like that. And you put them all together, and there's this huge string of pearls that have a beauty to them in the eye of the beholder once you've beheld them.
Yes.
Other than that, they go, and just go right over the top of your head if you're not paying attention and don't care. Some people do. Some people that listen to Jesus cared, some didn't.
He's just brilliant. When you read through all these parables, you start to realize, I don't know how other people think, but to me it just strengthens my faith even more that he is who he was and is the Son of God, because you just can't come up with all those illustrations off the cuff. Think about it. He didn't have anything written down. Mm-hmm. It was all in here by God, of God, from God, that he gave to us. And, I often wonder, it says in the book of John the book of Revelation that, and I think it says in other places, that everything that Jesus ever did cannot be fit every book in the world cannot fit everything he said into it. And I think how many things we do not have that are there.
John says that in the end of his gospel, isn't it?
Yes.
There's so many things he didn't write.
That's what it was, in the John, yes. So, for example, there is one example of this that we know it's not found anywhere in the Gospels, but the Apostle Paul said it, and that is, as we know, our Lord said, it's better to give than to receive. Well, that's nowhere in the Gospels, but it was a saying from Jesus.
Yep.
So it makes you wonder how many things like that are there. So
what are you excited about coming up here? You've been talking to people about all this?
Sure. Yeah, I announced it on Sunday here, and we. Oh, by the way, this is worth mentioning because she didn't mind me mentioning this. So when I was up here at the chapel service, I mentioned all the services during Holy Week. We have something every single day going on Holy Week that I think is special, and then all the Easter services are as well. And so I announced it here at the chapel, and my plan was to announce it over there during the Crosspoint service after the 10:30. And as some people know, maybe many people know, we had a medical emergency. One of our parishioners went into really a cardiac arrest, and they were able to revive him. He had a pacemaker that got his heart going again, but it was pretty serious. But it was a special morning because that morning we decided to do 2 concluding songs at the end instead of 1. And as we moved into the last song, Jason decided he wanted the whole church to be praying. and that we could pray for one another. We haven't done this in a long time. So we had people just kind of get around each other and pray. And right when that was happening was when this parishioner went into cardiac arrest. And when he was brought back, I was over him, and he opened his eyes, and his wife was telling me, I guess I didn't know this, but we had put on the screen everybody praying in the church. You know, they just put it not on him, but everybody in the church. And she looked up, and she saw the entire church praying. And she said, it was the most sacred moment in my entire life.
Wow.
Because I realized, she said, if he goes to be with the Lord, we have all the saints praying for him. And if he comes back to us, he has all the saints praying for him. Either way, we're safe. And that's a powerful thing to say when you're watching your husband, you're worried about him. So I just didn't realize that because I was going into, making sure he was going to be all right and getting people out of there. And so it was a special day on many.
And our safety and security people jumped right into it.
Yeah, I credit the safety team, James Hamilton especially. He has trained that team well because they went into, they all knew their roles. They exercised them perfectly. I was really impressed with the EMT. They were there within 7 or 8 minutes. I mean, it was really impressive because normally you're always thinking, why are they not here? They were there. And
you think they were there maybe a little bit quicker because we have the uniformed police officer there.
That's
so
exactly what happened.
A straight line to him.
Absolutely sure of that. And not only that, we had a couple of medical people, nurses in our church that were there in a second over him and making sure that he was okay. And so, I had a lot of people mention to me, listen, if I'm going to go, I would love for it to be in worship like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us think that, better than being in a hospital or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So, anyway, he's doing better. I haven't talked to Linda today, but hopefully I will. But thank you for everybody for praying for that. And God is good, whether we live or die. He's always good. But it's especially nice to be able to see.
That was really special.
Yeah.
Really special. Thank you for leading all that, and Jason, special guy too.
It was everybody, yeah. And I credit James and the security team, and just really, they did really good job. So what happened to the Story campus? Anything exciting?
Oh yeah, we're always doing exciting things over there. We preached on the demons that we all have, and then said the 10 Commandments together, and then confessed our sins. So it was a kind of come to Jesus time there.
A good Lenten service. Yeah.
Before Palm Sunday. So.
Yeah.
And this week, they've already changed the drape on the cross over there to red, and all the altar hangers are being changed, and we'll be wearing red stoles and all that on both campuses. And Holy Week will start in earnest.
Okay. And we're gearing up to get our energy and ready to roll. And yeah.
Saturday, though, special event. Nathan came over to see me today to make sure I plugged this, that men's dad's dinner it is.
Yes.
You know about that?
Oh, the reason why I know about this is because when I forgot to announce it during the chapel service, I was scourged by people to make sure I said it over here. So when I couldn't say it over here, I said, I have a pretty good excuse why it didn't happen.
Well, this is true.
Yes. So, I'm just going to have to assume that this will get out, and we'll tell people about it. But it's a dad's breakfast this coming Saturday, 9 a.m. here at Cross School. You can get online, look at it, and see it. It's on our website to sign up. And there's information on the back of that as well. But we're asking all dads with children to come to it. And
it's not just for Cross School's dads, any dads,
everybody.
But at the same time, granddads and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Because you never stop being a father.
Right, and it's at the Cross School's gym, so it's going to be a lot of room, and it should be a great event. So please,
looking forward to it.
Yeah, tell people about that.
Real good.
Yeah. So you're talking about the miracles of Jesus in a few weeks.
We start we have Easter Then skip the week after Easter for everybody to regroup, and then I start right after that.
And is it 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
Okay. And are you covering in general all the miracles?
No. I'm just going to pick out. The first week I'm going to talk about miracles, and then I'm going to do one miracle, and that'll be Jesus with the lame man at the pool of Bethesda. And then the next week I'm going to do several of the miracles come in twos. And so I'm going to do 2 the next week and 2 the next week. You can't, all the miracles, there's different people count them different ways. But
yes.
One book I read said there's 46 of them, and there's, just like with the parables, it's untold how many there were.
I saw some as many as 50, some said 27, some said 34.
Yeah.
There's just twists on some of them are combined. It's just, it's difficult to kind of quantify.
But I've picked out 5 that I'm going to speak to that people might have a little bit of knowledge about, but I've tried to hit them ones that they didn't have much knowledge about. Like we're talking about calming the wind and waves or feeding 5,000. We're talking about things that are fairly well done. We'll hit some of the others that are significant, but we just hadn't spent a whole lot of time on, so not at all. And I was just like the pool of Bethesda. You just think that that's the biggest naval hospital in the world, Bethesda Naval Hospital.
I know. Yes.
But at the same time, I was reading a comment about what that would have been like in Jesus' time, and they said that pool with the colonnades and all the people there said that would have been like a migrant camp. You would have had to hold your nose to walk in there. That it would have been that desperate of a place, because everybody in there was struggling, and they couldn't take care of themselves and all the rest of that, and nobody was coming in there to clean up, and it would have been really something to see, and how Jesus looks out on this sea of humanity, and he picks out one guy. Boom, one guy.
I do remember one of my seminary professors, Dr. Roger Nicole, he's gone on to be with the Lord, but a huge theologian in the last 75 years. But he talked about when he was in Switzerland, back when he was in seminary. This is way back, gosh, in the probably 1930s. And he said they were studying one of those passages, and they were talking about there were 5 porticos that went into this place. But he said, and that time he said there was probably 100 people in our class. It was a really big seminary. And at that time, archaeological discoveries said there was only 3 porticos. And he said 2 of the students in class just got really upset about this. And they were telling the professor, wait, but it says 5, but we only know there's 3. That's a huge discrepancy. And the professor said, it's just not that big of a deal. And I said, well, if that's wrong, then how can we trust all these other things if that's wrong? And he said, to one of the points, he said, one of the students was so upset over this because he thought he began to question everything. He ended up leaving seminary, dropped out of the faith. And what Dr. Nicole said, though, is what he didn't know, but something like 30 years later, maybe 40 years later, they were doing an archaeological dig on the same spot, and underneath they found 2 more porticos.
That's one of the amazing things.
5.
That's one of the amazing things, is that archaeology is confirming Scripture.
Yeah, 5. And he said, and that guy lost his faith over something he didn't need to lose his faith over. But not only that, he just didn't want to have faith that, hey, there's something here we just can't explain yet. And it just, we need time. That's a big word.
We can't explain it yet.
Yeah.
It's like so many things that happen to us in the world. You don't know why yet. One day, but not yet. Not yet. Yet's a big word.
That's the one of my pastor friends who discipled me way back in college used to say that the first word of our mouth when we stand before the Lord and we see everything as it is and all the reasons why things have happened, the first word is going to be, oh.
That's a good point. I like that.
Oh. Okay. That's why you allowed that to happen. Oh, okay, that's why this person.
Be a lot of O's, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that was helpful for me when I heard that, because I think we want answers now, and God doesn't work in the temporal; He works everything at one time. So,
one of the things in the times I've been to Israel is one of the things you're so amazed by is that when any kind of construction is going on, if you find something, any kind of bricks or anything that's old under there, everything stops.
Yeah.
aren't there. You cannot take another shovelful until the archaeology people come in there and see what's going on.
Well, it's one of the most historic places in history. I mean, it may be the most historical place in history. I mean, think how many wars and how much bloodshed there's been over there for that place, I mean, and still is today. I mean,
Still is today. One thing I read says it's the most fought over piece of land in the world because it's the land bridge between Europe and Asia and Africa. And the Far East. Europe and Asia and Africa. It's the land bridge, and whoever controls that controlled all the trade and commerce and money and everything else. When last time I was over there, they had stopped the construction of a road on the eastern shore of the Sea of Galilee in Jordan. They were building a road along the sea on that side to get down to the Dead Sea and the factories and stuff that are down there for rare minerals. And they hit a bunch of bricks and stuff, and they brought them in there, and they found the village that the Gerasene, Decapolis, where the man possessed by the demons was.
yes, yeah.
They started going down, and they found all the villages and stuff around there that were right there on the hill that runs right down to the lake where the pigs ran down.
Yeah, so did they find all the skeletons from the pigs?
No, that was in the water.
Yeah, I know.
But, if
I often think about that guy that pig farmer who owned all those pigs.
Yeah.
I just lost
a bunch.
And I mean, that man's life was saved, but
But one of the things that's happening over there, though, if they can't get something worked out on that water, the Sea of Galilee is about 12 feet lower now than it was the first time I was over there in '95. And now the Dead Sea is divided into two, and you can literally walk from one side to the other because the water level has gotten so low.
Yeah.
Because so much water is being taken out of the Jordan River and the Sea of Galilee. So they're trying to do. In fact, one of the things that's going on now that they hope is going to happen is building a canal connecting the Dead Sea to the Red Sea. That would then fill the sea back in again. And they think that they don't think it would make a substantial difference in the salinity of it. I don't see how that could be, but anyway, that's the only source of water would be to bring it from the Red Sea.
I wonder how much that's affected their economy, not having that water, if any.
Well, that's the problem. They haven't let it affect the economy because they keep pumping the water out. And they're not drinking water from the Jordan River. Israel produces all of its water from the desalinization factories they have that take the water out of the Mediterranean. So all the drinking water is produced. They produce that themselves. So but it's the agriculture that is what's using it all up, and industry. So pretty amazing stuff.
I'm sure that's going to be something that's going to happen in a lot of places too, but especially there. I mean, that's just such a historic place, and we have a group going over there in the fall, right?
That's right, November, around Thanksgiving time. Rebecca and James are taking a group over there, and that'll be great. They were over there, and so they know what's going on. And that'll be real special. Be a real special time for the group. Real special. One of the amazing things, the Dead Sea is so bad. I mean, it's just desolate down there. Nothing's green, just desolate. But at night you can see way off in the south down there, you can see the lights of the factories where they're mining the rare minerals out of as the water evaporates and more and more of the water condenses, it's all full with rare minerals.
Wow. And
Golda Meir said that God blessed them by giving them the only piece of land that didn't have oil, but it had water. And said you can live without oil, but you can't live without water.
No. And I'm glad there's not oil there, because then there'd be people trying to conquer it even more. So, gosh.
Kind of crazy.
Who was it? John Muir said, anytime you can put a dollar sign on a piece of land, it's threatened.
Well, that's exactly right.
If you put a dollar sign on a piece of land, it's threatened. And so.
Yep. He did a lot of great conservation work and out there with those parks and all.
You just imagine if, think about it. I'm sorry if I get off on a rant, but Teddy Roosevelt's my guy. Our dog's named after Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, God.
So.
I thought C.S. Lewis was your guy.
No, I mean, I can't.
You have more than one guy.
Yeah, but they saw for it in the future, and they were worried that, listen, if we don't put some of this land away, we're just going to, I mean, they saw the dark side of capitalism, and that is we'll eat everything we have. If we'll just build on everything. So both Roosevelt and Muir began to put lands aside, not just for themselves, but their children and their children's children.
Was there a model for that somewhere else in the world?
Nowhere.
Or they just came up with that?
Nowhere. We were the only. That's why they've said they've done documentaries on this, that the American parks was America's best idea. We're the only place, and not only that, because normally places of land like that are only open for the rich, the wealthy, people who can afford it. But national parks, they're open to anybody. Anybody can get there. Mm-hmm. And they're there forever. We're not going to strum you. We're not going to, they can't be bought. They're owned by the American people, put away. And so Roosevelt was trying to figure out how in the world he could put these lands aside, because he knew he could not get it passed through Congress. Listen, we're naturally bent toward greed. It's just the way we are. And they found a loophole in one of our laws. The basis said, if you can declare some place it has an historical significance to it, then you can declare it untouchable by private sectors.
Really?
So they said, you just have to, but the only person who can do this is the President of the United States. And Roosevelt said, well, what do I got to do? They said, you just have to declare it. He goes, I do declare. I do declare. So he started picking places out. Yosemite's one of them, Yellowstone, places out in New Mexico. And I think it's just special because I think that speaks into human nature. Like, we've talked about this before, but when you had the vision to start this campus over here and start Cross Schools, 20 years ago we were talking about this?
25.
Okay. People are like, well, why would we buy land out in Buckwalter? There's nothing but tumbleweeds blowing down that road.
It was all pine trees.
Yeah, so, but it just takes, you can't look at the here and now, you got to look forward to the future.
That's right.
And just like the people did 150, 160 years ago at the Story campus, building the church was way bigger than they probably were. And we're reaping the rewards for it.
They would never have seen that. They would never have seen that church full.
No.
Never. It was bigger than Bluffton.
Well, and it speaks to the parable of the talent. What are you doing with what I gave you? And so I don't know if Muir came from a spiritual element of that, but I know Roosevelt did. And they thought, this is God's. This is God. He gave this to us to be good stewards of it, and we got to take care of it.
There's a documentary series, I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it, that Kevin Costner made about Yellowstone. Mm-hmm. And the idea is to see, as best you can, to see Yellowstone the way that those folks did.
Sure. Who
first discovered it. And one of the things that was amazing was just kind of what you're saying there, that Yellowstone is not so different now than what it was back then.
No,
so it wasn't hard to find the before because it hadn't had a chance to be torn up, where so much of our country has.
And you can go into Yellowstone in the winter and see those gigantic buffalo. And if you didn't have anybody around you, you could think this is how it looked probably 1,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, no change.
No change.
But that would have been gone if we had not done stuff about it. So, So anyway, I think that speaks into something larger, and that is that we've got to think not just about ourselves, but go into the future. And I mean, think about the parables. Some of the disciples had the wherewithal to write these down, because Jesus never wrote one thing, except in the sand that one time. And here we have them. So, and you'll be talking about this in a few weeks with the miracles. Will. So, sure will. All right. Once you get the preacher going, it's kind of hard to stop him. So,
well, thank you for sharing that, John.
Yeah.
And food bank. Don't forget the food bank. I saw that last week they had 299 families come through for food. Isn't that amazing? They had prepared for 300, and they had 299 families. God.
Well, we know this is because. So during the season of Lent, our family always likes to do something together as a family. So what we've been doing every Friday night is we go over to the food bank and we put all the bags together. We double bag the bags and we put them out. Our kids just love doing it. It stretches my patience. But
you're not putting stuff in the bags.
No, we're just doing the bags. See, you got to take a paper bag and you got to stuff it in there, and you got to make sure it's it's not falling over, and because they need double bag because they feel these things. And so last year we did 250. I think the year before 230, and then finally he said the other day we've been doing 280. He said we need 300. I'm like 300.
Those numbers just keep on going up.
Our children said, why has it gone up? And I said, well, people need this. So it's it's not me to say tell about what we're doing. It's a blessing, because I think that is a ministry. Unless you're actually participating in it, it's a ministry that goes hidden. People don't see it; they just hear about it. But think about it. We're putting food in people's homes because of people take the time to give and to drive over there and bring food. And there's never going to come to an end to the good that people have done because of that.
I do want to thank all of y'all who bring your non-perishable items to worship services, or take them by Mission Mall out there and drop them off. That's how it's possible. That's how it's possible. All right, so don't forget, we got Easter services coming up. Pick up one of these cards. Pick up 2 of them or 3 of them and hand them out to people.
And then this is the Dad's Breakfast over here this Saturday, 9 o'clock, over here in the Cross School gym. Dads, bring your sons. I'm assuming we can bring your daughters too. Everybody come, children. So 9 o'clock this Saturday. I'll see you there.
All righty. Go in peace and love and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Blessings to you.